Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to the last segment of In the Shades of the Qur'an, and our today's topic for discussion is healthy diet and lifestyle the Quranic way. And to discuss this topic, we have with us the founding principal of Al Qur'an Institute London, Sheikh Shafiqur Rahman Al Madani. Before we went into the break, we had a very interesting call about organ donation, and I would like to continue to that discussion and then move on to our topic discussion. Sheikh, the gentleman who wanted to know, as you were saying, about the organ donation. Now, one thing, there's a question here I wanted to even add, is many scholars have this view, or many people have this view, that once a person has passed away, his body shouldn't be mutilated, or his organ shouldn't be donated. Now, how true? I mean, because there is a little bit of contradiction in both the views. So is it a contradiction or contradistinction?
Well, no. There is one view held by some that nothing should be donated, because
yes, at all.
donation actually involves mutilation of the body after death.
Mm-hmm.
What we need to understand and differentiate between is the mutilation for no reason, mutilation
unnecessary.
Yes, mutilation, unnecessary mutilation, and which actually leads to dishonoring the body, the dead body, which is a property which belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un, after death. So, but donating the body does not come under that principle or that view, and that is why donation is a donation to benefit other creatures, other people in need, for example. That is a totally different principle, a principle on its own, an independent principle which has its own sanction and sanctioning in the Islamic Sharia, and therefore under that criteria, that it is necessary for someone else, and someone else is getting benefited, another brother in need is getting a benefit out of it. In that principle, under that principle, ulamas, majority of ulamas today allow this sort of donation. After death or before death. But as I said, if it is before death, then there are two conditions. There are two conditions. One must not endanger his own life, put his or her own life in danger, number one, and it must not be out of seeking financial benefit. It must be only for the sake of helping someone.
So that means there's three then. The person who is being benefited with the organ must save his life. In the
yes, must benefit. Yes,
yeah, okay, must benefit.
That is understood. That is understood.
Okay,
yes. Yes.
Hopefully, inshallah, this answers the question. It is a very important question, and as we have found out now, that it is allowed in Islam to donate, provided the organs of the body, provided that we follow the condition as the Sheikh has mentioned. And I'd like to reiterate that it's not because of any financial gain. And number two, it does not harm the person who is donating. I mean, he cannot donate his heart, because that might take his own life. Yeah. And number three, of course, the person the organ has been donated to, inshallah, it must help him, or it must even save his life. That's if right. These conditions are met, and then obviously in line with the respected scholar, there are possibilities, it's allowed in Islam to actually donate. And as Sheikh rightly said, that we all want to receive when in need, but we don't want to donate. So inshallah, may Allah give us the tawfiq to follow the guidance of the ulama, with the rulings that they are giving us. If you do have any more questions related to the topic, or even anything in general, feel free to dial the telephone number which is appearing at the bottom of your TV screen, 0208 523 4111. Alternatively, you can email us on quran@chsuk.tv, and we'll try and accommodate your question as much as possible in this program. Sheikh, we have touched about the breastfeeding, which obviously we have seen that UK is one of the lowest. Now, moving from this subject, there's another big issue, as I've said in my introductory, or even in my second segment, that today a lot of diseases are associated due to our luxury lifestyle, chronic illnesses. Some of them, if I have to name, heart diseases, type 2 diabetes, stroke, so on and so forth. And on the other hand, we have the issues of obesity. And I have come across so many articles about obesity, and in one of the recent articles I have found out that obesity is a greater burden on the UK's economy than the armed violence, war and terrorism, costing the country nearly 47 billion a year. 47 billion pound a year. It's the Guardian article, and it's been published in various other medias. As you have mentioned in a discussion about the excess amount of having food, does that not involve us being obese and at the same time being a burden not only to the society but also to the, alhamdulillah, the medical system that we are being benefited in this country?
Thank you. I think that's a very practical and very relevant question to our life, today. Obviously, abundance of food, affluence that we have in the food industry, and there's so much and so many items of food that we have. Obviously, we do not have any control over this individually. This is business, this is economy, and so many other things are involved in it. But what we have control over is what we, the intake that we make, the amount of food or the type of food that we actually take in. That is where we have our control, and we need to exercise our control over there. How to exercise our control over there? First of all, we need to remember that processed food, food that are processed food, we need always to give extra care to processed food, any item of food, and particularly we need to go through the ingredients list of the ingredients, and we need to go through the nutritional information. Usually, our Asian,
or even anywhere in general,
Asian background, Bangladeshi, Pakistani background, we do not actually
read or go through it,
this sort of information, but these are very important.
But even if we read it, we don't understand it.
We don't understand. Well, the problem of understanding can be solved, because one item of food, if you take it once to someone who understands it, then for the rest of your life you can be assured that this information, this means this means it, and you can avoid it, or you can get it as much as you like. But the problem of not going through, not reading even at all, this is the problem that we need to address. And
this is part of the knowledge. Even Islam encourages that.
That's right. So, as I said, excessive having excess food. We have so much of excess food in market. We don't have control over this.
That's true.
But for ourselves, the amount that we take in, we have the
control over it. Or even in our household.
That's right. In the household, what we buy for ourselves.
As they say, charity begins at home.
Every week or every month, we go to Sainsbury and Tesco and all this, and what we buy and what we eat.
Or any other market.
Any market. Any food that we buy, we must be careful about this. Yeah.
I mean, not in terms of not buying excessively. We can buy, but in a well-balanced whatever we need.
I mean, we need to be, again, israf and being excessive and being waste. We must understand that, money is a very valuable resource.
It's also an ni'mah, isn't it?
That's right. If we waste every month less than 50 pound worth of food, it means that we are wasting it. I mean, this 50 pound could have been spent
or invested in a very
invested, or it could have been donated to people who are in need.
Yes, it's true.
So wasting food not only is seen, but it is depriving other people from
there's an interesting there is an interesting relationship there now. The israf is not only about the food here, but also about the money the halal money that we waste, that we don't even use it.
Exactly. That is why in Islam, the Quranic view is there are two: israf and tabzir. Israf, and tabzir, two things. Israf is where you spend where there is need, but do a little bit more. And tabzir is where you spend your resource, your money, where there is no need. In a complete waste.
But then there is the connecting question. Now, people, alhamdulillah, some people Allah has given us, or some of the people, say for instance, Allah has given us the bounty, tawfiq, to buy expensive houses, to buy luxury cars.
That's right. Yeah.
Now, is that an israf for those people who can afford it, not on credit, but from their earnings, if they can avail these kind of luxury?
No,
or will that be classified as israf?
Allah has blessed with excess of resource and money and wealth. They can use them to benefit their lives, to make their life comfortable, as much as they can. That's not a problem. But again, waste is what needs to be avoided. Yes.
Yeah, because there's a very close element. Now, for instance, some people who cannot afford to buy, say for instance, luxury cars. In a society, we know what luxury car means. But they will go to either any institution, or they will loan on it interest, even interest-based loan. Now that's one for them. For them that could be waste. But for someone who, after fulfilling all the religious obligations, say for example is giving the zakah, earning in a legitimate way,
yes.
and then from their halal income enjoying the luxury of the life, the bounty that Allah has blessed them, and thanking them for that.
Yes, you see, needs of life are of three kinds, as we know it. Very necessary, which is basic, and then what is called complementary, what is called secondary, and what is called complementary. Three types and three categories. So basic needs obviously must be fulfilled. Then when it comes to complementary stage, complementary needs and needs that are embellishing, or giving beauty and giving ease, bringing in ease in your life. In those two stages, if somebody can give up some of those comforts and some of those ease in their life and save some money and give this money or share it, or this resource share it with other people who are more in need, then obviously that is where the sawab comes in. That is where sadaqah and the sawab comes in.
That's true. That's true. You mentioned about the Ramadan issue. Now one thing also it is related to the obesity is we see during the Ramadan that the whole day, especially this year's Ramadan, would have been I think about 19 hours we did fast. So we can abstain from food for 19 hours. Alhamdulillah, Allah has given us the ability and tawfiq in such a hot weather as well. But as soon as we sit for iftar, we notice that Alhamdulillah the table is full of food, and sometimes we do see there are
we make up and more.
So now what is this
we
view?
and more.
So now we have done the fasting, we observe the fasting, but during the iftar, not only the table, but we see small tables are also filled with other, mashallah, the food. Now, what is the view? I mean, how do we break the fast and how do we observe iftar?
Well, first of all, we must understand and we must know that according to the blessings and the abundance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted and given us, we can eat as much as we like in our fasting, after our fasting, when we break our fasting and we do iftar. So basically it is allowed, so that's not a problem. What we're talking about is what makes sense. What makes sense, sensible way of breaking the fast and doing the iftar. What does it mean? I mean, first of all, we have to keep in mind the very purpose of fasting. The very purpose of fasting is to have a little less of what is even halal for us, so that our body is takes rest, and our body has the chance to get rid of all the toxics and all the wastages that we have referred to earlier, and also for us to realize the pains of hunger, so that we can then be sympathetic and more helpful to people who do not have enough to eat.
And you can understand even their feeling. How do they feel when they are...
And thirdly, we get spiritually uplifted. Spiritually, very highly spiritual people, they willfully deprive themselves of good food. I mean, that's a different level we're talking about. So the more highly spirited you are, the more sort of godly you are, the more Allah-fearing you are, the less you will be having the intake of food, etc. This is, this is complementary. So keeping all those things in view, if we have, yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed us to eat and everything halal, but then it becomes the very anti-purpose of the fasting. So we need to be sensible.
Now, with regards to this, of course, when we are talking about eating, there are etiquettes of eating. Definitely, we know that there should be etiquettes of eating in Islam. Now, one of them we know from the Sunan Ibn Majah that it's often very famous hadith that about the 1/3 portion should be food, 1/3 should be drink, and the 1/3 vacuum or air. Now, my question is that the minimum criteria or the maximum criteria?
No, I mean this is. We can say it's minimum. We can say it's maximum. It can be interpreted both ways. However, the Prophet ﷺ said that in this hadith that the worst vessel
From
that
the
can be
beginning of the
filled-
hadith.
the worst vessel that can be filled in is the stomach.
I see.
So, recommended, the recommended level of eating is to fill it 1/3, to fill the vessel 1/3, 1/3 and 1/3 for, 1/3 for food and 1/3.
But even in that hadith, the middle portion of it says you have to eat at in such a level that at least it can keep you going.
Yeah.
In other words, what I understand from this is eat to live, not live to eat. Isn't that
Well,
true?
that's very important. That's very important, and I always refer to this, that a Muslim's mission in life is not to, not to live for eating.
Yes, because in our society and culture we do see
That's
now
right.
we live for eat.
Our mission is akhirah. Our goal is akhirah.
That's true.
الدنيا مزرعة الآخرة. Dunya is the farmland of the akhirah. Here we do our amal, and we do our acts and ibadah and all the rest of the things that necessary to live, because we need to live for akhirah.
That's true.
And therefore here we need to live, we need to eat because we need to live for akhirah. And that's the fundamental and basic difference between the Muslim view and Islamic view and the materialist view, that there is nothing after life.
Yeah, because that's a different concept.
That's a different concept,
So basically,
yes.
the understanding of this hadith is basically eat to live, not live to eat.
That's right.
That's right. And then I think the maximum criteria has been also mentioned in the hadith, that 1/3 food and 1/3 drink and 1/3 vacuum.
Yeah.
And a lot of things, even the medical science today recommend that. And alhamdulillah, Islam, even in that 1400 years ago,
Yes.
is so advanced even today what the medical science are accepting
Well, this is what it is. This is the miracle. The miracle and the astonishing side of the Qur'an, being the Kalam Allah, being the word of Allah, being the guidance from the final guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All that is there, all that has been said by the Qur'an, we as Muslims, we take it as the word of Allah, and whether we understand the reason, whether we can explain scientifically, the wisdom of it or not,
that's later on. But there is definitely hikmah behind it.
But there is anything, any rule or any law or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made for us, there is a hikmah, there is a wisdom behind it. Whether we understand it or not, that's a different thing.
Or maybe even we don't see it at the moment, maybe in future.
But the more days are passing, the more scientific research, etc., and scientific discoveries, etc., are proving the points made in the Quran by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala regarding our life, our health, our society, our family, in every part of our life. So that is why we say, come back to the Quran, bring the Quran back to your life. It makes sense. It makes sense. Not only, there is a saying ascribed to Imam Shafi'i, and I'm not sure whether how authentic that that ascription is to Imam Shafi'i, but it says that if you want dunya, and you have to have the Quran. If you need akhirah, you have to have the Quran. And if you need both, again you need to have the Quran.
And even this, if you see the lifestyle of our Sahaba, even Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam at the age of 60, even what we understand from the hadith, he was fit.
Yeah.
We know they fought a lot of battles and a lot of, so that shows us there the Sahabas and Tabi'in, they were not, we do not find them as obese. We find them, they were full of energy, full of strength, and their physical activities, like it showed us that they were very healthy.
Yes, that is why the Prophet ﷺ says, "Al-mu'min al-qawiyyu khayrun min al-mu'min al-da'if wa fi kullin khayr." A strong believer, a stronger believer, a strong believer, physically strong believer is better than a weak believer, but both
of us, yeah. But also encouraged.
Yes, there is goodness in both. But the Prophet ﷺ says the one who is physically strong is better than the one who is physically not strong. Why?
Because then it will be easy for him to perform the spiritual activities like salah or siyam.
Salah for his person, and also for the society.
One of the beauty of is, out of the 5 pillars in Islam, 3 of them requires us to be in best physical condition.
Yeah.
The salah, the siyam, and the hajj.
Yes.
So we have to be in the best physical condition in order to fulfill this.
For ourselves, for our family, for our society, for Allah's sake, for Akhira's sake, we all know the benefit of sihha, a benefit of health, and particularly when we get ill or older, and how how many problems start emerging in our life, in our health, and then we become sort of, regret.
That's true. We do not value a
regret it.
thing until it's either temporarily or permanently
That's right,
gone.
that's right.
Now,
That's why the Prophet ﷺ says, in a hadith, that 5 things you must
take advantage of the other 5.
Must take advantage of 5 things. The best advantage, best use of 5 things before 5 things. One of them is صحتك قبل سقمك.
Health before sickness.
Your health before you become ill.
Sickness. Now we're coming to the close of the program. I want to touch on one of the other aspects is in our Muslim community, especially in South Asian or even in Muslim land, in Gulf countries, we do notice the lifestyle diseases. And as I've mentioned before, the 2 lifestyle diseases are diabetes and heart disease. Now diabetes, we know that is a person's blood sugar or glucose level becomes very high. Now there are 2 types of diabetes, or 3 types, type 1, type 2, and obviously there is other type of diabetes which is normally associated with a pregnant woman's, but it comes off after the birth. Now type 1 diabetes, we know when the pancreas does not produce any insulin at all. Now type 2 diabetes, according to the World Health Organization, is due to the lack of good diet, food, nutrition, and most importantly, lack of exercise. What does Islam talk about exercise?
Well, lots of guidance and lots of instructions and lots of references are there in Qur'an and in Hadith, in the Prophet ﷺ's life and history of Islam.
If I have to ask you 3 examples of exercise.
So apart from healthy eating, healthy lifestyle consists of a few things: healthy eating, mobility, exercise, and also rest. Sleeping. Well, taking rest. Which of course includes sleeping. I mean, rest is always not sleeping, but sleeping is obviously part of it. It's a very important part of it. It's a ni'mah again. In the Qur'an, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala referred to ni'mah, nawm, referred to
وَجَعَلْنَا اللَّيْلَ لِبَاسًا وَجَعَلْنَا النَّهَارَ مَعَاشًا.
So these 3 things, there are references in the Qur'an. There are references in the examples in the life of the Prophet ﷺ. Because time is so short, we cannot go over it.
What 3 exercises would you recommend for our young generation, for example?
Well, any sort of exercise, physical activity, either going to a gym or going to a park, doing some, playing some football or badminton, swimming, etc. Archery, horse riding, all these sort of exercises need to be done, of course, as Muslims,
in moderation.
We need to keep a few other things in mind. For example, the question of satr, the question of covering the awra, covering the necessary, the part of the body.
For men and women are different.
For men and women, and also keeping in mind salah, prayers times, etc.
Yes.
And keeping in mind not that much, sort of. Association that actually not allowed,
But again, that's a connecting question, because you mentioned about gym. Now, too much of exercise, too much of gym. Nowadays, we see toning muscles and bringing out the biceps and everything. Now, too much of gym will again make us feel too hungry, then make us eat too much of food. So this relation, we have to also be careful on that. Not too much of gym, in moderation.
If there are people for some other reasons, some special reasons, if they want to
for example, just want to look good. So according to their look good is basically toning their body or making their body very big and huge.
I think that's what I said. If there are no special purpose, if there are special purposes for this, for example, some people who are sportsmen or sportswomen, if they need to shape their body in certain ways, then that is a different case. But generally, yes. Again. We need to maintain balance in everything. A Muslim is one who maintains balance, in everything, in the lifestyle, in eating, and in dress, and in belief, and
in every walks of life.
Every walks of life. Now, coming from that point of view, from that principle, even when we do exercise, we need to obviously
be moderate, inshallah. Jazakallah, Shaykh. Our time is unfortunately up, and thank you again once again for being here and giving us your valuable time.
Well, it's my pleasure to be here with you and in front of the our channel's viewers.
Thank you.
May Allah help us all, and may Allah accept all our good deeds, and may Allah give us tawfiq to think about the way that we live and we lead our life, and come back to the Qur'an, to the follow the Qur'an and teaching the Qur'an, inshallah.
Thank you very much. With this, my dear viewers, we have come to the conclusion of today's program. In short, what I have understood from our today's discussion is healthy lifestyle, a balanced lifestyle, a healthy physical lifestyle is obviously can lead us to a spiritual well-being. In short, diet, nutrition and exercise combined with the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God consciousness and a sincere intention to fulfill all of our religious obligation is what makes a healthy lifestyle. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability and tawfiq to practice a healthy lifestyle in line with the Islamic ethos of moderation. Thank you very much for being with us watching the program. Hope you have found the program educational, informative and interactive. From me, Qamar al-Islam, and from the whole team behind Channel S, we ask you to pray for us, and wherever you're watching us across the globe, do stay well, look after yourself and each other, and most importantly, let us stay united as one ummah. وما توفيقي إلا بالله عليه توكلت وإليه أنيب سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. جزاكم الله.